talking nerdcore, today. We're talking nerdcore our way. We're talking nerdcore today. We're talking nerdcore.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Animeoveranalyst here, and welcome to episode 5 of Talking Nerdcore. Today with me, I've got on APhantomChimera. Hey, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, my name is Phantom. A lot of people know me already, but if you don't, yeah, my name's Phantom. I'm a huge nerd. I sing, I do music, I do cosplay,
Awesome.
I do everything.
Nice. And your YouTube channel is APhantomChimera, is that correct?
It sure is. Or
Uh,
Chimera, however you want to say it.
all right. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about Demon Slayer because I think you
Ooh.
know something or two about Demon Slayer, if I am correct.
I know a lot of things. I used to be obsessed with the series, so yeah.
All right. So, to kind of begin with, why don't you give like a brief summary of Demon Slayer, just like where the anime is at? You can include the movie, of course. So,
So I even finished the manga, but I'll keep it short and simple and
mhm.
hopefully spoiler free. Demon Slayer follows a young boy named Tanjiro who um he suffers a major loss in his family, or all of it really, to a bunch of demons, and he sets out to go and avenge his family for the demons that killed him and his family. Not him and his family. God, I can't talk.
Mhm.
Um he goes out to slay demons in revenge to, like turn his sister back into a human because she got turned into a demon. Um, and it basically follows him on all his adventures and all that. And it's currently picking up track again because the movie just came out and it was released in American theaters a couple months ago.
Mhm.
So, and now it's currently back on track with season 2. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, fun fact, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to check out the movie. It looks like that it's on Hulu." Turns out no, they're just redoing the movie in episodic format for season 2.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. I just watched the first episode today and I was like, "Wait a minute. It ended with the movie. What's going on here?"
Yeah, so really surprised me, but I still watched the movie. I just broke down and purchased it instead of like doing the whole Hulu thing. So, like I said with my other guests, you pretty much have free reign to talk about whatever you want, as long as it's within the confines of, let's just say, the anime, because that's only where I've been at, and I don't want to be spoiled
Okay,
with manga stuff. But
absolutely.
spoilers are always in effect, so y'all have
Yeah.
been warned. I don't want to
Y'all
hear
haven't
about it.
seen it. If y'all
So,
haven't gotten caught up with it, you're in for a whirlwind.
oh yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like it. So, let's start off with just the question I usually ask everybody is like, what got you interested in Demon Slayer?
So my friend Jessica, she'll probably hear this later on.
Hmm.
She has been watching a lot of animes, and she was like, "Yo, like I think you would really like Demon Slayer because it's really up your alley." And I was like, "Oh no, it kind of doesn't look like my thing." Like at first, the style kind of put me off, but I was like, "Okay, like I'll give it a try." So, what was it? 2019, I think,
Yeah,
or
I
2020,
think
something like
it
that.
was like
Uh,
either fall 2019 or spring 2020. Hello, you there?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I cut off. Um, So I was like, okay, I'll try it and I'll see like what I think about it. In the first few episodes, I was like, it's just a training montage. Like I get it. He lost his family. Now he's gonna go avenge them and get his sister back into a human and blah blah blah. And it was
Hmm.
kind of boring at first. But then as it picked up and the story started progressing, I was like, okay, like I can
Yeah.
see the appeal of it. So kept going with it. But by the time it was done with season 1, there was so many questions I still had and not enough
Hmm.
answers, and that's when I went on to move and read the manga instead. So from then on, I kind of it wasn't like a love at first sight kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was more so of like a, okay, let's take this bit by bit and see
Hmm.
where this goes. And then ooh, ever since Mugen Train, I just went like
Yeah.
headfirst into the manga and it was great.
Yeah, for me, it was pretty much like I just thought it was a solid anime. It was enough
Mhm.
for me to just kind of keep on watching, and mainly the animation alone pretty much allowed me to keep on watching. Mainly when it really started picking up with the fight,
Mhm.
Tanjiro versus the guy with the arrow eyeballs, and it's like the brother
Oh,
sister combo.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And so that it was just really interesting, all the wave effects that came out of his blade whenever he swung it. I just thought it was super cool.
When it came to the actual demon fights, I was like, "Okay, now we're cooking."
Yes.
It's like, "Now we're cooking, we got some cool shit going on."
Yes. Like even like the fight prior with the
Woo! Mhm,
swamp dude, that was real interesting because it was like Tanjiro was getting engulfed in a swamp. I was a little confused there because it was like, did he get transported into a
mhm.
swamp, or was it just he's underground? Like that whole concept kind of confused me, to be honest.
Yeah. Some of it was also kind of, as the episodes of the first season kept going on and he kept on encountering different demons, it kind of stagnated and it started doing the same thing where it's like, "Oh, okay, the same
Hmm.
format in every episode. Oh, you find a demon, you deal with the problem, and then that's it."
Yeah.
Until the Rui fight, the, Mount
Yes.
Natagumo arc, I think it was called,
Yes.
where you deal with the spider family, and it
Y
gives you a different point of view with what's going on. Like, it's obvious that demons aren't just attacking people just because they want to, but there's more darker themes at play.
Mhm. Well, and that's one thing that I really started to notice with Demon Slayer is that each of the demons kind of had, like, a desire or a goal, and then it was just kinda manifested to the point where they kinda got obsessed with it, and
Yeah.
that's really how they came demonic. Kinda makes me think of the house one, where we first meet Inosuke,
Oh,
and
the one with the drums.
yes, and that dude, he really just wanted to be a writer, and everybody
Yeah.
was letting him down, and it was actually really interesting because he's like, "Everybody get out of my house. Get out of
Mhm.
my territory." And
Demon
yeah.
Demon Slayer, it was so you won't really see much of it until you get to further things in the manga itself, but there are demons that don't have any other reason besides nefarious ideas that they want to fulfill.
Mhm.
Whereas there are other demons who had completely pure reasons, like Rui, he only became a demon because he was sick and he didn't want to be sick anymore. And his parents were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, this man here is offering like a cure-all. Do you want to take it?" And he took it, and then he didn't really know like what that meant. Whereas
Yeah.
there are other demons who I will not mention who did it just because they wanted to cause problems and they
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to keep doing the bad things that they were doing. But it also offers that, um it offers darker sides and more complex things on the backgrounds of the characters, and I think that's kind of a lot of what I think that's what people most overlook about Demon Slayer is that there are a lot of darker themes at play, but you really have to pay attention what people are saying, what people are doing, and what's going on in the background as opposed to what's going on with the main characters.
Yeah, because with the main characters, I mean, there we have Tanjiro, who's like the pure-hearted, like
Mhm.
stereotypical anime protagonist, and then we have the two comic relief characters with
Yeah.
Zenitsu and Inosuke. So totally agree. And to even go on with that Rui family, like I love the whole concept of Rui is the child. He looks like the child, and that's what he wants to be. He wants to
Mhm.
be a child, even though
He
he's
wants to
the
be
head
what he
demon.
didn't get to have.
Yes, which was literally a family.
Yeah.
And so that was real interesting. And I like the subtle foreshadowing of in that series,
Mhm.
with the
Oh,
whole
there's a lot.
yeah. With the whole like he had a conversation with his mother, and at first you thought, "Oh, she's terrified of the father."
Hmm.
No, she's terrified of Rui.
Yeah. Yeah. There was just a lot that was going on that most people just overlooked. And going with that, when people focus on the main characters, personally for me, it also makes me not like the main character.
Mhm.
Like at first, I understood Tanjiro was supposed to be like the good, like how do I put this? Like the good boy,
Yes,
basically.
he really
And I
is.
was really he is a good boy, but as you get further in the story and even past the events of Mugen Train, he becomes not mean, but he becomes more assertive in what he does, and it makes him more likable as a character for me, as opposed to that protagonist that just lets everything happen or tries to be like, oh, well, they had a reason to do it, and that's okay, kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
there have been points where he was like, that is not okay. We're going to knock this stuff off. Done.
Yeah. Well, he kind of
Thanks to
tries to
Rengoku.
do that with Zenitsu whenever Zenitsu goes on his crazy stuff, and uh
Yeah.
Tanjiro just kind of reins him in a little bit.
You do get to see a bit of that personality when they're in the forest walking away with Nezuko after the
Mhm.
drum demon, where Inosuke was like, "I'm gonna fight you," blah 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 blah,
Yes.
Gonpachiro, and Tanjiro's just, "Who are you talking to? My name is
Yes. Oh,
not Gonpachiro."
I love the scene where you have the basically the soldiers are being tethered by the mother's strings, and they're all forced to fight each other. And
Hmm.
then Tanjiro figures it out, and after slicing off the strings, they keep coming back because they're being attached by spiders.
Hmm.
And then he's like, "Okay, I have this idea. Let's just run around." And freaking Inosuke was like, "What are you doing?" And then he
Are you doing?
jumps over a tree branch, and the strings catch around it, pretty much rendering him useless. And Inosuke's like, "I want to do that. I can do that better."
There was a part in the Mount Nataguma arc
Hmm.
where I was reading the manga and I went on Tumblr, which was a mistake.
Ooh.
And I went through one of the tags, and there was a frame of Inosuke sitting there, like terrified. And all he says was, "I'm going to die here." And I didn't know what that was from. So when I watched season one, and
Hmm.
he was standing in front of the father spider demon, and he was like, "I'm
Yeah.
going to die here." I was like, "Really? It was that early?" Like I didn't think it was going to be that early, but I guess it was.
Hmm.
But it seemed in comparison or where I'm trying to go with this, with the manga's a lot darker. The anime is
Yes.
kind of like eh, it's like a it's like toned down and
Yeah.
it's made more pretty. So I kind of understand why I'm sure you've seen this also too, like on Twitter or all over the place, where people say that the animation for Demon Slayer is what really carries it as a series.
Hmm.
And I, like, half-heartedly agree, but I also disagree because there's a lot more that you can get out of the series if you pay attention to it. But
Yeah.
the animation kinda grabs everyone's attention away from the actual story, which I really wish they did more darker
Yeah.
themes that are in it, but they don't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've actually read parts of the manga as well. In fact, I'm up to that arc in the manga, and I definitely agree. Like, even with that initial scene when Tanjiro has finished doing his shopping, or doing the coal stuff, he walks up to his family's place and just sees everyone dead lying around, and the place is just bloody. Like, that's a
Yeah.
the way it's framed is so incredibly dark, and how it moves on from there is incredible.
So there's another thing that I'm not sure if you knew about this about Demon Slayer, but before when season two was it was announced, it wasn't even given
Mhm.
a date at that point. Did you by any chance happen to hear about like the whole issue about people having problems with the setting of season two? Because if not, that's a whole can of worms.
Um, w I wanna say it's supposed to take place in Rengoku's.
So
Like Villa?
season 2, it's the red light district.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I'm not gonna go into detail about it, but a lot of people on Twitter, Tumblr, and all that, they were like, that's not like that's a toxic thing to be having in your anime. There's already so many stereotypes about it. And it was such like a big issue with it that it seemed like I had something to bring up with this and I totally forgot what it was, but I'm just gonna go with it. They were bringing up like all these
Mhm.
points about why it shouldn't have been set that way, as if they could change it? Question mark. But they essentially the season is still gonna be what it actually is, and it's a darker theme. And people weren't okay with it, even though they knew that Demon Slayer was already a dark shonen.
I think people tend to forget how dark Demon Slayer is because we have Nezuko. And
Oh,
I think it's
oh, oh.
because Nezuko is like the poster child. She is the beautiful darling that everybody must protect. And so I think people get too wrapped up with that, and then they get kind of into the mindset of, okay, it's not such a dark anime because we have Nezuko there. And
Mhm,
then we have like the movie Mugen Train,
mhm,
where we start really delving into some of the darker sides, like Rengoku's backstory a little bit, and like how Hashirama has affected his family.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, it seems that a lot of people in general, and this is just a general statement
mhm.
of what I've been talking about the last 20 minutes, is that there's a lot more going on in Demon Slayer that make it a lot darker in the manga, especially, and people tend to either overlook it or the animation kind of overshadows it, and it doesn't do any justice for the story, and hence why people are like, oh, the animation carries it. The story's kind of, but there's so
Yeah.
much more to it. Ah!
Yeah.
I have so many issues with it, it's not even funny.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's still a lot of mysteries. Like, why did Nezuko become a demon to begin with? Was
I
it
actually
really?
do know the answer to that, but I can't tell you because it's
Yeah.
manga.
Yep. 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 I mean, the anime
Telling
is
you,
pretty
read
much
it.
left off. Yeah, anime's left off. I guess I gotta read the manga. You're convincing me to finish reading the manga. Might
So
have to
many things answered, trust me.
might have to get you back to after I finish doing it. Just do a recap episode.
Oh, for sure, you should.
Yeah.
A lot of it does come, I will tell you though, a lot of it does come from Muzan, but not in a way that you think.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's really interesting how like the upper 5 demons have not died in hundreds of years.
Upper 6. They're safe.
Yeah. Oh, upper 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's also reasons for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Mugen Train, like
I say as
Akaza
I
goes.
stroke Akaza's picture on my wall.
Yes. Well, I checked your Twitter and it's like number one Akaza fan, or was it Akaza simp? I couldn't remember, but
I am Akaza's number 1 wife, thank you.
oh, number one wife. My bad. My bad.
The one character in any series I will ever, like, do anything for. It's just
Hmm.
I okay. I originally did not love Akaza. Fun fact.
Okay.
I hated him. I really wanted to keep hating him, but I couldn't. I
And let me
couldn't.
guess, it's because of manga spoilers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when he showed up in the anime, he just felt like bad guy for the sake of bad guy because he just wants to fight strong people. Like he
Yeah.
tried keeping Rengoku alive because he wanted to fight Rengoku again when he was stronger. He was like
Yeah.
Rengoku wasn't in its prime.
Yep. And even when I got to that part in the manga, I because that's your first impression of him, especially if
Mhm.
you don't know anything about the uppermans. You're like, oh shit, like this is it. Like these are what the fights are going to be from here on out.
Mhm.
And in that in comparison to that, with what you've seen with Tanjiro and everything, that is nothing compared to what they've been doing.
Oh,
And you're like
wow.
and you're like, "Oh, crap. Well, sorry, Tanjiro, you're gonna die, I guess.
Yeah.
You're all just gonna die." But then when he wraps up the fight with Rengoku, it's just like, "I wanna kill this guy." Like, I hate him.
Mhm.
I don't even know anything about him, and I wanna kill him.
Yeah,
And
well,
I
yeah.
was like that for quite a long time.
I mean, and that's probably one of the darkest aspects that Tanjiro gets, because it's real interesting because his like soul was like pure,
Mhm.
and then I'm wondering if it gets kind of tainted after this incident because he starts, going rage mode a little
Mhm.
bit.
Back when I said that he gets more assertive, he
Mhm.
picked up a lot of traits from Rengoku, is what I
Yeah.
personally believe, because he learns that he has to put his foot down on certain things, but he also has to not give the benefit of the doubt all the time. Like, normally, when he sees that a demon became a
Mhm.
demon because of, like, some justified reason, he kind of gives a little bit of, like, that savior complex where it's like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
okay, like, you're free now," kinda thing. But then with other fights in the future in the manga, he still kind of retains a little bit of that savior aspect, but at the same time, he was like, "You had to go. And you can think of it as me freeing you, but you did
Mhm.
damage and you need to go."
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah,
So I think I'm gonna go on my little hot take here,
go for it.
and it's that I kind of hated the animation in Mugen Train,
Oh?
mainly when it came to the train itself.
Oh, like
And
with the CGI?
yes, I hated the
Yeah.
CGI a lot.
I'm
Like
I'm not a fan of CGI
I I think CGI is
either.
great when establishing like scenery.
Mhm.
Like in the first scenes, like it was beautiful, amazing.
Yeah, like when you're at the train station.
Yes, or even just like when they were with shoot, the leader of the Hashiras and he's going among
Mhm.
the graves.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's beautiful. Seeing big objects being animated with CGI is very clunky to me.
They definitely did a need to be.
Yeah. And I think my issue was that the train kind of looked like a Play-Doh. Like literally I'm watching it and I can't
Is it
even
real?
remember the demon's name that was controlling it.
Enmu.
Enmu. Like did they even state Enmu in the anime like once?
No, it was mentioned at the end of season 1.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
When he was meeting with Muzan, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And so, like, when he became that, like, goopy monster, and I'm sitting there, like, I kind of understand. I don't know how you would make it, like, without CGI.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it just looked awful to me.
With that scene in particular, I I I really wish they kind of showed that the train was more of a body than it was. Because in the
Yeah.
manga, they showed, like, actual body parts inside the train that, like, they had to cut through to try and figure out, like, where the head was. But in the animation, it was just kind of like it was just like mush or paint
Yeah. It
or
was
something.
literally just pure mush, and it was like
And
where they're
it wasn't
slicing through
really
it.
anything. Like, you could still understand the idea that it was supposed to be the body, but it wasn't as cool as it was when it was drawn.
Yeah. Yeah,
Eh,
I mean, I felt like the whole like even the character Enmu, I just did not care about at all.
So, originally, when they mentioned that Mugen Train was gonna be the movie, I was absolutely upset about it. And the
Mhm.
reason why is because the manga, the chapter arcs, whatever,
Mhm.
Mugen Train is like the smallest arc in the entire series. And I was like, it's less than 10 chapters, I think. how are they gonna make it
Wow. That's like
like an
3
anime
episodes
or a
worth.
movie or whatever? And I was like, there's no way that they're gonna make something this big with such a big cliffhanger at the end a movie. How? How are they gonna do it? And for a while,
Yeah.
I was kind of on that same, like, bandwagon where I was like, "There's no way, like, this is gonna be a good movie because it's gonna start out in a weird spot where you're
Mhm.
meeting a random lower moon that you don't really know anything about because you just met him at the end of season 1 for all of 5 minutes, and then you're ending with an upper moon killing a Hashira." Like, it didn't make sense to me, but when I watched it in the movie theaters, I was like, "Okay, like, it's not terrible. It's really good." Like, the animation was pretty top notch. I mean, I still agree with the CGI, but I feel like
Mhm.
that's just something that, what studio does it? Ufotable? I think? The
Yeah.
studio, like, chose and even in season 1, they chose really odd times to use CGI, and it's still carried over into the movie that I also didn't really like, but in the movie, it was significantly better than it was in the 1st season, so I kind of ignored it and kind of forgave it for that moment in favor of the good animations in the movie, but there was a lot I still didn't quite really understand, like, why they chose Mugen Train to do the movie, but at the same time, I do because if they had kept going on where season 2
Mhm.
starts, it would have been a lot longer of a movie than what Mugen Train would have been. So, when me and my best friend were sitting down, we were like, "Okay, like,
Mhm.
what are they gonna do for Mugen Train? How long is it gonna be?" She kind of brought up something to me, and I was like, "Okay, let's hear like what you have to say." And she was like, they're probably gonna elongate everything that happens and like insert things into it to make it more movie length, more movie appropriate. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I mean, you can do that, but at the same time, like, there have been movies that I've seen where they take like a concept and they add things into it and it just makes it no longer that concept. And
Yeah.
I was afraid they were gonna do that for Mugen Train. But they did relatively well. I don't think necessarily it was the best
Mhm.
uh part of Demon Slayer to be a movie, but I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible at all. It was actually pretty good. One of my favorite anime movies, but there are still some things that I am nitpicky about, and I still don't think that the Mugen Train arc should have been the arc that got animated into a movie. But
Yeah.
we got
Well,
what we
and
got.
it it really confuses me that they made it into a movie and then they're like, "Okay, we're gonna make it into season 2 of the anime anyways."
Yeah,
Li
so it even started when when they did the first episode that just dropped last week.
Mhm.
It started with some sort of like I guess, like, background story of how Rengoku got to the mission of Mugen Train, which, like, I can understand, like, why they would do that to kind of give more of an opening to the season, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I was like, "What's the point of making episodes of Mugen Train with the same story for the next season if we already have the movie?" And then they were like, "Oh, well, it's gonna be different." But now that I watched the first season or not the first season, the first episode, it ended with exactly how the movie starts, and I'm really worried that they're just gonna use the movie over again to just make filler episodes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning to, and I really hope that doesn't happen.
I really
But
hope not, but the simp in me is also really hoping there's new animations for Akaza.
yeah, yeah, but that wouldn't be for further
Sorry.
on down the line too. So, I don't know. Me personally, I thought the story was all right.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not the
yeah,
best like I said, it's not the best arc story-wise either. So that's why I was kind of like, "Mm,
yeah.
okay."
I mean, and honestly, like even Rengoku felt overhyped to me. Like part of me was like, he's pretty much the only reason why I enjoyed the movie. But on the other hand, like I only saw him for so little,
Yeah,
and
so I've always thought that the overhype I knew the overhype was gonna come because I knew like I read the manga way before the movie was even in
hmm
production. And I was like, you've only met Rengoku for 10 to 15 chapters and then he's dead.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, they're building up like such a good character. and he's really great. Like, I love him, don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I know what's gonna happen. People are going to cling to that, and they're gonna be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, he either is really good or he sucks because he didn't live very long," kind of thing, and I knew
Mhm.
people were gonna cling to that, and I was like, "Okay, well, I hate to say it,
Mhm.
Rengoku's a great character, but he's a catalyst for other things. Sorry."
Literally, that's kind of what I was thinking of. Like he helps develop Tanjiro, and he really sets up Akaza and the upper demons.
He's that meme where it's like, "You used me for character development?"
Yep. Yep.
That's exactly what he is, and it
He
sucks.
Yeah. I mean, and I love his personality, and like I love the whole I'm a huge sucker for characters who just want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm a huge sucker for those type of characters, but I on the other hand, I just didn't know him long enough to become attached to him.
Yeah, you could definitely tell from meeting him from the get-go that he was either 1, not gonna live very long, or 2, he only had a purpose to the main character, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Or both.
And
And
it's kind of both in this instance.
it was both. And you can tell when a character isn't given that much love and TLC or whatever you wanna call it,
Mhm.
because they're just a catalyst. And that's what Rengoku was, sadly. But he's still a good character, and I think a lot of people cling to that, and they cling to what could have been.
Yeah. So, um, okay. So I'm gonna, I guess, backtrack a little bit and
Go for it.
just give me kind of like your overall thoughts on like the characters of like Zenitsu, Tanjiro, and Inosuke, like the whole three group there.
The
Are they like a
trio.
good trio? Are they mediocre? What you think about them?
I would say they're kind of mediocre, to be honest. They follow stereotypical anime cliches. Like, you have the very obvious main character who's good and like tries to do good, and then you have the crazy
Mhm.
loud one who's a psychopath basically, and then there's Zenitsu who's like the perv.
Yeah.
It's a very cliche triad. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just a uh
Yeah.
more common triad trope for anime characters. But there are some little things that I do like about them more than other triads or
Mhm.
trios or whatever. But
Yeah.
in that retrospect, there's really not enough to differentiate them from a lot of other characters, so it makes them mediocre.
Yeah.
I
And
personally love the villains a lot more than the good guys.
yeah, I agree. With me, it was a lot of like the first almost half of Demon Slayer was just Tanjiro and Nezuko.
Yeah,
And then we get introduced to Zenitsu, and he went people went crazy because he had the one strike kill when he was
yeah,
asleep, and that was like a really cool ability, which I kind of like how he kind of subconsciously gets strong.
mhm,
And then we don't get introduced to Inosuke until later on, and
yeah,
so by the time they really start to feel like a trio, it's like that mountain arc, and they're separated
yeah,
in that arc. So I was really confused when people were like, "This is a great trio," when I'm like, "We hardly see any of them together."
yeah. It it's partly in fault to the pacing also, because I feel like the first half
Hmm.
of the season was trying to emphasize that Tanjiro and Nezuko are like an item, and that the whole reason everything is happening is because of family, and because he's trying to
Hmm.
keep whatever he has of his family left together. Zenitsu and Inosuke don't really bring that same aspect with them. They bring other aspects that kind of show like, oh well, there's other things going on in the background of this story. It's not just family, it's not just fighting demons.
Hmm.
Like, you're fighting demons for a multitude of reasons, not just because of what they did to you or what they're currently doing, but whatever it is that's going on in particular. So when they kind of bring in like whatever story is going on with their personal backgrounds, they bring something different to the story, and I feel like that gives it that like that trio kind of thing going on because they all relate to one
Yeah.
thing or another, but they have different things going on to make them different from each other. But
Yeah.
they still it's the same anime format. Like they all come
Mhm.
together, they have one common reason, and then that's why they all stick together.
Yep, pretty much.
But
I mean,
it still doesn't really make them any different from any trio, really. Or
yeah.
quadro if you want to count as a ghost who's asleep in a
Yeah.
box half the time.
Yeah, in her little chibi form.
Listen, I would live that life if I could. I'd be sleeping
Yeah.
in a box.
Yeah, you could just carry me all day.
Carry me all day, all night. I'll come out, kick a
Kick
demon's
some
head off
butt.
his shoulders for a little bit, and then go back in my box and go
Yep.
nap nap.
Yeah. And I guess what's really kind of confusing is kind of like her power scaling as well because like her first fight she's out like asleep for like a year or something like
Hmm.
that while Tanjiro is training. And then after that, she doesn't need to sleep for months on end. And so I don't know, it's like
She and I kind of fault the writer for this.
yeah.
She and you'll see it in season 2. Her nothing really makes sense when it comes to her abilities because they're like, "Oh, well, she doesn't need people, so she'll need to sleep a lot." But then she'll go and do like something crazy, and then she won't
Mhm.
sleep for a while, and she still has that amount of power, which doesn't make sense to what they told us in the first bit. So there's kind of like contradictory statements with what's going on with her powers,
Mhm.
and it doesn't make any sense. And then it kind of just gets forgotten about.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that a lot with anime just in general is that they like to try to
There's
establish some
like a
kind of
lot of plot
boundaries.
holes.
Yeah, and then they just forget about them. So, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it also kind of happened because they started focusing more on the trio as opposed to her, even though she's part of the major reason why Tanjiro's
Yeah.
even there in the first place.
I
But
mean, Zenitsu as well, the way he simps for her.
oh my god.
Like,
Okay, no, but the dream that he had in the movie was hilarious. I was
yes.
crying.
I love
I was
how
like,
like
"Oh my
the
god."
kid talk about dark. The freaking Enmu was sending kids to go into
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
subconscious. And he was just like,
Take this
Nezuko?
thing and break it.
Nezuko?
He was like,
I
yeah, no, all their dreams were so wildly different, but it was so funny
yes.
at the same time. I knew Inosuke's was gonna be hilarious because I read it beforehand, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to see how they animate that because it's gonna be ridiculous."
Well, I just love how he's like minions attack
Minions! And they're like, "We're not minions, he just go, minions!"
and he like Nezuko's a rabbit and
Mhm.
he it's just so funny.
I will say though, in the movie
Mhm.
with the dreams, Tanjiro's made me cry. I knew it was gonna make me cry.
Really?
It did. I knew, but that's also because I kind of understand some of like what he has gone through with losing family, and I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna cry. I knew it." Like,
Okay.
mm.
Yeah. I I really kind of hope that more comes out of that because that was really dark there where he had to A kill himself in order
Yeah,
to get out of get out of the dream world, and B he's constantly being told by the family that he's failed them. And
one
that's
yeah.
yeah.
One of my friends was like, "I don't understand how this got the rating that it got," and then when the part came up, I was like, "That's why." And they're like,
Yeah.
Did he just kill himself?" I'm like, "Yes, he did."
Yes.
Yeah,
ReZero style.
yeah. Like, that was the only way to get out of there, and it sucked, but he knew he had to do
Mhm.
it because it was the only thing that was gonna wake him up.
and he did it over and over and over again, which it's nuts.
And I can imagine that he also felt it too. Like, when you have those dreams where you
Yeah.
wake up suddenly and you can feel whatever was going on, like he probably felt it.
Yeah, like phantom pain. Or
Phantom pain.
yeah. So, and the
I had to make the pun. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. And so I also like how the whole power base was like if they see Enmu's eyes, they fall asleep.
Yes.
But with Inosuke, they can't tell which direction he's looking. So
Yeah.
it like in a way I'm like that's kind of hilarious. On another end though, it's like that just seems kind of like BS. I don't know.
It
Like it makes sense, but and I think it just works for more of like a
I
funny
think
gag than anything.
there was more to it than just the looking part. But then again, Enmu could also like morph the train. So even if I guess even if you were looking a different
Mhm.
direction, he would be like, "There's eyeballs on the ceiling now."
Yeah. Like I don't know. It's real interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think about the whole idea that under the pig mask that Inosuke wears is like supposed to be a female face? Honestly, I don't think it looks like a female face, but what do you think? Or do you
He
even care?
he looks almost exactly like his mom.
Oh, really?
That's gonna play a very subtle but very dark detail in later seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I
Got
can say.
gotcha. Because it felt to me like he wore the pig mask because it's kind of like a safety blanket for him.
Yeah. He
And yeah.
he's a little crackhead.
Well, yeah, he wants to go around fight things.
Yeah, he when he was a baby, he even still wore it. But
Hmm.
it's because it was really like like they said, he was raised in the mountain by boars because they were the ones that found him when he was an infant. And
Gotcha.
that's how he was raised. But I can tell you though that he also was raised by farmhands. So that's how he knows how to like talk and write and
Y-
more or less, but
Yeah. Well, does he?
not
I was gonna
necessarily
say
socially interact, but
I don't think he knows how to read though.
I
Wasn't
don't
there like a scene where he couldn't read?
I think so. But he learned more human mannerisms is kind of the gist.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
And it
when
wasn't like it was brought up in the manga, but it was brought up in
Mhm.
like when like a very small sliver of it where it's just like, "Oh, by the way, this happened. Oh, by the way, this is how this got there." And it's not part of the story. It's just random information.
That's kind of sad. Kind of wish that it would be fleshed out more, but
There's a lot of things that I wish were fleshed out more in Demon Slayer, but I kind of also understand why they didn't. In summary,
Mhm.
some of the Hashiras kind of got that treatment. Like you
Yeah.
got their background stories and you understood what they were doing, but then outside of like demon fights, you didn't really see much of them.
I mean, to be honest, I really don't care about any of the Hashiras. Like, to me, I was like, oh, they're just another top
That's fair.
organization. That seemed to be it to me.
Mhm.
It's like, to me, it was like, those were the goalposts that, the author wanted Tanjiro to get to. It's like,
Mhm.
this is where you need to be in the story.
Mhm.
And
There
so,
there are definitely Hashira that I absolutely love 1,000% more than other characters.
which
But like I
one?
said, I love Senemi a lot. Like ridiculously a lot.
Which one's that one?
He's the one that stabbed Nezuko.
Oh,
Mhm.
that one.
He gets painted as a dickhead. And he is in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like at first I really hated him because he was the one character that was like trying to establish like the principles of the Demon Slayer course and be like, this is how it is. Like, your sister's
Mhm.
a demon. There's nothing else you can do. But
I
at the same
yeah.
time, he he was all what we didn't know was that he was relatively new to the
Mhm.
Hashiras at that point.
Oh,
So
really?
he is he gets painted like a dickhead for trying to follow the rules of all that stuff. And I can understand why you would still think he's a dickhead because he does some really dickish things.
Mhm.
But later on, he gets broken down a lot more. And though it's not really given much, he kind of gets more treatment in preference to that when it comes to the backgrounds and all that, as opposed to like Himajima, the stone guy, the stone Hashira, the
Yeah.
really tall
Yeah.
one who like prays
Yeah,
all
the
the
one that
time.
prays,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like he still gets a background, but it's kind of just like, oh, it's because he's in this fight. Now you get information about him. But that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed things like that a lot with just anime in general, like in Jujutsu Kaisen even, where it's like, well, you don't know about a character until they fight it out. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay.
Some other other Hashiras that kind of get that preferential treatment before major events is Tokido, which is the really
Mhm.
short one with the misty like the tealish hair. He's the mist pillar.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then Mitsuri, the one with the pink hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like they do kind of go into depth a little bit in the anime with Wisteria, I think
With
is her
what?
name. The butterfly girl.
Oh, Shinobu.
Shinobu, and oh, I should know that Shinobu. And who's the one that saves Tanjiro in like episode 1?
That's Tomioka. Hugh.
Tomioka. Yeah, their
Yeah.
relationship
He's
is
like
real interesting.
out of all the Hashira, he's like the poster child.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of that the character that like every anime needs. It's that like that emo guy. Like literally, I always say there's got to be like some kind of emo guy in every anime.
And that's him.
Yep.
It's perfect because he's like, I'm not a Hashira, and all the other Hashiras are like, yes, you
Yes, you
are.
are.
It's like you're coming to the Hashira dinner because you're a Hashira.
And things like
And he's just like,
he's
I'm not Hashira. It's not a phase, mom. That's
even when he was
exactly how
trying
he
to
is.
kill Nezuko in the beginning, he's like, "Okay, fine. I might see potential in you. Fine."
Yeah. He also has uh catalyst tendencies to him. But that's
Yeah.
also why he's the poster child of the Hashira, because he's the catalyst, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I really think he's kind of the goalpost that Tanjiro is aiming for, to be honest.
Mhm.
That and Rengoku. But now that Rengoku has died, it's mainly him.
Yeah. He
So,
he does he does have more of a relationship with him afterwards, after like the events of Mugen Train. But
okay.
it's kind of like Tanjiro, in a weird sense, also becomes a catalyst for Tomioka because he meets someone, or he already met someone in
Mhm.
season 1 that was really important to Tomioka and was like, cut your shit, stop being emo, and get your shit together.
Gotcha.
And that kind of pushes Tomioka to be like, okay, like maybe I should start like accepting these things and, function like a normal person.
Yeah.
So in a way, they kind of are catalysts for each other, which is a nice thing to see in anime character relationships because that means that both of them evolve and get better, as
Mhm.
opposed to one getting better and then turning to the other character and be like, "Oh, thanks for being my teacher." Blah 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 blah. Bye. So it's nice to see
Yeah.
that. I can't say it. Reciprocation.
Yeah. Well,
Reciprocity.
and a good show or just good story in general usually has good enough world building where it doesn't feel like the main character is the center of
Hmm.
the show. And right now that's kind of Demon Slayer. It just feels like Tanjiro
Tanjiro is
and
the center.
Nezuko is
Oh,
the exact center. Nothing goes on around him
And
So
that's why people are gravitating towards Jujutsu Kaisen, because at first you think, "Oh, Yuji's like the main character," but then it gets more complex. Demon Slayer
yeah,
still has that problem where it's like, "Oh, there's only one main character and everything's centered around him."
yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love One Piece so much. But that's also a different discussion.
It sure is. But it that kind of anime trope, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
really limits the focal point of what you're seeing in the world that is built around you. Because, like I said,
Yeah.
Demon Slayer, when you're paying attention to the things in the background or seeing what's going on besides the main characters, there is a
Mhm.
lot more to delve into and to understand and even theorize about, because sometimes there are things that are going on that don't have clear answers that are so much more interesting,
Mhm.
sorry to say.
Yeah.
Like, in for me personally, I was more interested on, like, how Muzan operated, like, how him and Nakime and the Infinity Fortress and all that stuff, how is that working? What's going on behind the scenes? Like, how does it function? Like, what's going on? But you don't really
Yeah.
see it until there's a lapse between the 2 sides where they kinda just give you, like, whatever's going on, like the setup for Mugen Train with Enmu and all that, and
Mhm.
that's all you really see of it. It's
Yeah,
just
and
there's more details that are more interesting that's
mhm.
than what's going on, and it really limits the focal point of what you're seeing of the world around you when you're focusing on just, like, one singular main character.
Yeah, like one of the kind of hidden details that I picked up on, which I love, is the fact that when Tanjiro was training, we kind of got to learn like how they, well, first he encounters ghosts, and then we
Yeah,
kind of learned how they
Haruto and
became
Makoma.
ghosts. Yeah, and that in itself is really dark because they died literally taking the test.
Yup. Yes. And they also there are more details about them that you don't learn until later on that makes their existence even more morbid and more
Really?
like, ooh, because they had relations to other characters and other characters knew them.
That's
And those
interesting.
characters moved on without them.
And that's something that, I'd really like to see a lot in just storytelling in general is like how do side characters affect other side
Mhm.
characters without the main character? Because
That
that's how you flesh out a world.
Yeah, that happens a lot with Demon Slayer. There are a lot of side characters that are affected by other side characters, and you don't really get a lot of that because you're focusing too much on what's going on with the triad as
Yeah.
opposed to what either what happened, what's currently happening, or what's going to happen. Um, an example being when I was talking about Inosuke with looking like his mom,
Mhm.
that gives him a very morbid detail in the future because someone knows him.
Yeah.
And it's not because they know him in particular, but because they know his face. And
Oh, yeah. I'm
it's
already starting to picture that.
it's dark. It's a very dark detail that gets really overlooked. And that just happens with a lot of the smaller
Mhm.
details, including how side characters affect side characters, which again is something that I really love in world building when you give all these minute details that really paint the world around you and give you really cool
Mhm.
things. But when you're focusing on just mediocre trio characters, you don't really get anything out of it.
Well,
And it's even worse
and
when the anime just completely like dips it. Like
yeah.
they just completely decide to rip it out of the whole entire thing, which Demon Slayer is kind of at fault for.
Mhm.
But I,
Well, and the pacing issue in the anime is just so weird. Like they spent so many episodes just with the training arc.
yeah, it was like 4 or 5 episodes in the very beginning of the season. I was like,
That's
I'm
too
usually a
much.
person I'm usually a person bleh, can't talk.
Mhm.
I'm usually a person who gives an anime like, 3 episodes usually, because by then, the 3rd episode, you kind of get, like, an idea of what's going on, what's gonna happen, etcetera,
Mm-hmm.
etcetera. But I knew that this anime had other characters in it, and I wanted to keep pushing forward to see, like, what these other characters were, but at the same time, it was just training arc, training arc, training arc, and I'm like, "When is it gonna be done?" Like, if I didn't know anything else about any other characters that I was even vaguely
Mm-hmm.
interested in, I wouldn't have kept watching it.
Well, and some of the best training arcs that I've ever seen are training arcs where where the world is developed around the arc,
Yeah.
and that we literally didn't get
Demon Slayer
that.
didn't get that at all. Yeah, no.
Yeah, like all we got were those ghost spirits, and I'm like, okay, that's really cool. But
That was about it,
yeah,
though.
that's honestly that was one of
That
my
and
hot
Tanjiro
takes
having
with
long hair.
yeah, that was one of my hot takes when it came to
I
MHA
don't know
too.
what it
That
was
I
about it.
talked. Go ahead.
No, no, sorry, you're good.
Yeah, when I was talking with Rice Records on my first episode of the podcast, I was
Yeah.
like, the training arcs don't do anything for me because they don't propel the story.
Yeah. It that same thing with Demon Slayer when they did it for the first 5 episodes, it just made everything stagnate after, like, the 2nd
Hmm.
episode. Because by the end of the 2nd episode, you're like, "Okay, great, when is he gonna go join the Demon Slayers?"
Yeah,
Like, we already know what he's trying to do, why can't we just get there already? Like, we already saw, okay, we get it, he's training so hard to get to it. He wants to save his sister.
and
Ta-da.
at that point, there's no stakes.
Yeah, there really isn't. And you're like, "Okay, just get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off."
Hmm. Yeah, like I'd almost prefer it more
But
if
had it not
they.
been for me knowing about certain characters in the
Mhm.
future, I would have just stopped watching it. And realistically, the only reason I kept watching all of season 1 was because I really wanted to meet Tokido. I don't
Okay.
know why. I think it was because internally I really wanted to cosplay him. And I was like, "Okay, like, he's really cute. I don't know who he is, but I like him. He's got a nice face." So I kept watching it, and then it wasn't until the very end of season 1 where you meet all the Hashira, and I was like, "Well, we're already here.
Yep.
I'm already delved into the entire series, okay." And
I
along
mean,
the way, I liked it.
for me, it was more like I was intrigued with Muzan because
Yes.
we meet him early on, which is relatively new when it comes to anime. It's just meeting what appears to be the final boss. I'm not really sure if he's the final boss or not, but he looks like it.
Yeah.
And uh, you don't really see the final boss being introduced so early.
Until yeah, until, like, the end is usually when you get them.
Mhm.
But Muzan, I have a weird love-hate relationship with Muzan because in one way, he is a cliche anime villain where he's the all powerful and he can control everything and blah blah blah. But at
And
the
he just
same
sends his minions to do
yeah, and
his
he
dirty
sends his
work.
minions to do it all. But on the other hand, I also like his how I guess volatile his is the best way to describe him. He, he's very topsy turvy or like this or that with things.
Mhm.
Like you would think that, oh, like he would never show mercy to any of his minions or whatever, but then you see what he grants to Enmu at the end of season 1 just because he said one thing correct and that was it.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, like it's more so of how I wanted to know more about what of his personality makes him like either like you or hate you.
Yeah.
Why does he function the way that he does? Why does he think the way he does? Like what about him is so appealing to me that I don't know yet?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that kind of like was like the
mhm.
hook and sinker
Yeah. I mean, for me, what kept me
a
going
little
is
bit for
like,
why I really
uh,
liked the villains a lot because they're
mhm.
yeah. Yeah, he kind of like lures you in like as the first
Yeah.
big problem. And then he's like, "Oh, well, all my minions are going to deal all of my shit and blah blah blah." But really he kind of plants all those seeds himself and then just lets it go.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
he was a lot more complex. than I had initially thought because he kind of comes off as that cliche anime villain where he sends off all his minions and does it, but really he's doing other things in the background also.
I mean, he does give me the type of vibes where it's like he 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 has his top 6 who have been
Yeah.
undefeated, and so he doesn't really care about what happens underneath them, and
No.
so
He
it's more of like, hey, I'll create some pawns. If they get destroyed, ah well.
he so what kind of gave like I guess brownie points for him for me was
Hmm.
when he was talking about I forgot exactly what point he was talking about his upper or whatever. I think he was at like a meeting with them in the manga or something. And he was like showing them love and like preference and everything. And he's like, "Ah, like my children, my upper 6 who haven't moved for hundreds of years. Like I show preferential treatment towards you. Oh, I've spoiled you for too long. Oh, blah blah blah." Like he actually genuinely kind of likes them. And I was like, "Okay, that's a little weird, but, like, I'm into it, like, okay." Like, I
So,
didn't know he even had a shred of love in that dead heart of his, but
mhm.
dead hearts of his, but he was a very interesting character the more that you go into the series as opposed to when you first meet him. So
Yeah.
that kinda kept me with the ball rolling. There were small little things that kept me onto the series that wasn't the main characters.
I mean, with just even the little mystery for me was like he walked around town with a wife and child, a human wife and
Yep.
child,
Yep.
just out in the broad. I guess it was nighttime, but still, it was like I don't care. And then
It's
just
also kind of like,
how,
"I'm in public, Tanjiro, what are you gonna do?"
yeah, and how subtly he was able to turn a dude into a demon.
Yeah.
Like that was just so cool. I
Just cat
almost
scratch.
wish I kind of wish though that that didn't happen because then I really wanted it to be like are they really going after the right guy?
Mhm.
And
Kind of
I
like
mean,
mind
yeah.
play it, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. And
He gets better at that, and trust me, he gets better at
okay.
that.
Okay. Because yeah, that was definitely one of the things where it's like, are they really going after the right guy? Because I mean, Tanjiro for some reason is like a dog and can sniff everything. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you are definitely the demon." I don't
Yeah.
know.
He I'm just gonna say this, there is a
Mhm.
major reason why Muzan targeted Tanjiro's family.
Gotcha.
Major reason. You know how he tells all the demons, like, go after the Slayer with the Hanafuda earrings?
Mhm.
There's a reason.
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
a reason.
I'm thinking it might be linked to his dad a little bit.
Not in the way
Maybe.
that you think.
Oh, okay.
In season 1, there was a
Mhm.
silhouette of a person with brown hair that kinda looks like he could be related to Tanjiro that was shown, and, it's not his dad. It's it's not even
Hmm.
anyone related to him, so just saying that, but that is the reason.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I don't even remember that silhouette then.
I remember it because I was sitting there with my friend Jess, and I was like, "Is it who I think it is?" And she was like, "It's not. Trust me."
Mhm.
It's like, "But he looks like him." No, it's not.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm think I know what you're talking about now. Now that I remember it.
But yeah,
Just
there's a
just
lot. There's a lot more. There's a lot more than what the anime shows you. And I really
what?
encourage people to read the manga because it's so good.
Mhm. Well, okay. Well, I guess we're at an hour now, so about to wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to
Hey.
say about Demon Slayer?
Uh, uh, I love Akaza. Thank you.
All
That's all
right.
you really need to know about my
All
personality.
right. So any socials you want to plug, Phantom? Anything coming out?
I I literally go by the same name on everything. Um, I mean, I just released something. But it's not Demon Slayer related. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
Higurashi related.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that's really it. Yeah, I go by the same name on everything. So Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that. Look up
All
my
right.
name.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on.
All right.
And so I hope you all are taking care. I'm the anime and overanalyst, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Now, drink water, eat food, sleep properly.
Do all those things, guys.
Talking nerdcore today. We're talking nerdcore. Talking nerdcore.